Some
So
people.
you just have to make sure all the people who are all happy with that. So we won't put this out. I imagine you won't put this out on Facebook with highlights on Alethea, right?
No, I'll only put it to the ones who want it.
Yeah, yeah.
And also, oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. Anybody have any objections to this?
No,
Okay.
I'm fine.
No, I don't mind.
Okay, now the first thing, first I want to start with these things are theoretical and they're kind of best case solutions, but I don't believe any of us possesses this in its entirety. Also, I have to tell you that I'm a little bit red-faced when I present something like this, because taking myself back to my courtship days, I was useless. I was hopeless at this because I was looking at how good looking she was and how attractive she was and that kind of thing. You think I was thinking about anything else but the romantic end of it? I wasn't. But you know, as life goes on, I've started to see patterns, and if I can get other people to think in a little bit more of a non-romantic way, if I could say that.
Yeah.
Really good. Okay, here goes the 5. Are you ready? Sure you're ready? You guys aren't ready. You're not ready.
We're ready. And I've got no idea what Larry's going to say, and he's got no idea what I'm going to say. So we could have 10 different points.
We could.
Or 5. Who knows?
Okay, the first item is faithful and faith-filled. Now, some of these items, I have kind of subheadings to them because there's more to it than just the block idea. So faithful and faith-filled. The first one is what faith-filled. You're either taking your cues from God or you're taking them from yourself. Okay, the ups and downs of life, the Holy Spirit of Jesus will teach you how to love this special other that he's chosen for you. But if you're not taking your cues from him, you're only taking your cues from yourself. So being faith-filled, it seems to me that would be on the top of the list. Now, with faithful or faith-filled, I've got one other heading that would be loyalty. I do not believe that anything can be accomplished relationally if you do not have loyalty. If someone's not loyal, nothing is going to work. It cannot survive anything, okay? Now, loyalty is a very, very big subject. It comes to defending your spouse. It comes defending the one you've chosen, etc. So that's my first item, is faithful and faith-filled. I would just add that one of the greatest blessings in my life has been in my marriage. Every morning, Judy and I wake up and we have the Bible open. I personally always pray over something to share with her in the morning, nothing heavy duty or anything, but just what can I give Judy in the morning? And then we talk about it. We pray together, okay? And I think that if I did not have that connection, I would not have grown the way I've grown, really. Here's some more.
It does add a dimension that it would otherwise not be there.
Yeah. Hi, Carrie.
She's still.
Hi, Carrie.
Okay, so the first one is faithful and faith-filled. Okay. Now the second one is has a financial, spiritual, or relational vision for the future. Now, this is one thing that I found was especially valuable for Judy and myself, is that we did have the same vision. We wanted children, okay, and we discussed it. If I've known one couple where the husband didn't really want children, but the wife did, but they didn't really communicate about it very thoroughly, so there was a disconnect when it came time for her to get pregnant, which she did twice. And you see, so having a vision for the future, financial, you're going to choose a mate, check the work history. Oh, that is so unromantic. I know, Owen, isn't that terrible? Check the work history. What kind of tree are you coming out of? Yeah. But wait a minute. If the person cannot hold a job down, okay, you may be tying the knot with somebody who's going to tie you in knots. Because as time goes by, you're going to continually be the bread earner, and they're not going to be doing anything.
And sooner or later, there's going to be resentment setting in from somewhere.
Yes. Okay. Another subheading is spiritual. Does your intended sincerely want to know God? Now, it would be too tall of an order, I think, personally, to say, well, they've got to be on fire believers and, they've got to really be, prophets and this. Listen, we got to do real life here. That's just not going to happen. But do they really sincerely want to know God and his will? And then if you have that attitude, he'll work it out and make it grow, you see. So that's again in the subtitle of Vision for the Future. Then relational. Does the person that you're hooking up with, have they had just a string of short-term relationships? Have they never had a long-term relationship? That tells me something. Okay. So
Well, that's actually the same principle of holding down a job.
yeah, I think, yeah. So,
Because
yeah.
the person who has short time in various multiple jobs is very likely to have the same problem with relationships. They're just fickle.
Yeah.
And that shows.
Mhm.
Okay. Yes. And if they don't have any idea of what a long-term relationship is about, then okay. And then again, are they willing to learn it? Okay. Are they willing to see why it hasn't happened and learn it? Okay. Number 3 is a healthy self-identity or working towards it. I don't think, honestly, when Judy and I first met, I don't think either one of us had a very healthy self-identity. And we both were probably pretty insecure people. And both of us very, very touchy and easily offended and stuff. And we had to grow into our self-identity by adopting the Christ identity. But that was something we both helped each other do, okay?
And I have to tell you that I'm still doing it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's not something that you ever stop learning. You don't get it.
Mhm.
It's something you are continually working towards.
And what I mean by that, a healthy self-identity is, are you aware of your strengths and your weaknesses? I think that's just, and I don't mean this in an American kind of self-idea. You know, the Americans are always thinking of themselves, obsessed with themselves, kind of. I mean, I grew up with them. I can tell you they're kind of like that. I don't mean that kind of thing, self-absorbed. What I mean is just looking at yourself and saying, okay, I have this weakness here. I have that strength there. That just makes sense. That's part of your self-identity that really needs to be understood. So that's number 3. Now, number 4 is what are the established habits of work, play, and hygiene? Now, I centered on hygiene. I know that this is going to sound a bit funny, but look, you can put up with quite a bit when you're at the beginning stages in the relationship. But as time goes by, it becomes more and more important to keep that flame alive. And if you have slovenly, hygienic habits, the person's going to start getting turned off to you. And then the physical attraction it's going to go pear-shaped, okay? And healthy habits of work, just basic everyday habits. How are they? All right. So that's my 4th, the healthy habits. Now, the next one is, do they love you at least as much as they love themselves? Okay. Now, this is a difficult one because remember the last seminar that we had where I gave a keynote, which was, if it's important to your spouse, make it just as important to you. Now, I'm going to be very honest with you at this point and say, when I first married Judy, this was not my idea. I was selfish. I didn't understand this concept. As a matter of fact, when I first met God, that's the first thing he highlighted, is that I had my attention completely on self, and he was going to teach me how to take it away, take it off, and put it on other people and on my wife. You see, and again, I'm still learning this, and I still have to pay attention to it because there's this instinct that is always there. So for me, it's love your spouse. Do they care about what your life is about? Okay. Now, I'm going to put one more thing in the mix before I hand it over to you, Paul, because I'm going to say there is one element that we have to look at that kind of blows the whole thing up in smoke. Everything I just said. I hate to tell you this, but I'm going to blow it up. Okay. The element of attraction and affection and love. It's seldom the case that intellect and purpose morph into attraction and affection. It's usually the other way around, isn't it? You start with a spark of affection or the spark of attraction. You don't start with well, I wonder if this, girl's, kind of, what's her self-identity? You don't give a rip.
Mm.
You don't. You look and say, how good looking is she?
However, if you don't take the time, if you rush into your relationship so that you don't take those other things into consideration, you are making a rod for your own back.
Oh.
It's all very well to have the attraction and the lovey-dovey thump, thump, thump. Ooh, it's fun. That's all very fine and good. But if you are sensible, you will take time and then start thinking about those other things before you actually jump into the water.
And you know what? We did not. We were married 9 months after we met. And sorry, excuse me, a matter of 30 days. So you see, it's usually the other way around. If there isn't that wonderful spark of affection and attraction, do not pass go. Do not collect 200 pounds. And now I'm assuming that this step has already happened, or we wouldn't be having the conversation. Okay. And listen, I'm being honest with you. One of my big weaknesses before I met the Lord and before I met Judy was I used to go out with the wrong kind of girls. I just did. I wasn't wise. I didn't know how to be wise. I'd just look and say, well, I like that one, and I like the kind that were bullshit, but anyway. So now looking at all this, if I had it to do over again, great stuff. I would have done everything that I just said. And I am confessing to you that I did none of it. Except for, I will say though, I did have a vision and I did know what I wanted to, what kind of goals and targets that we had. I wanted a family. I wanted a lifetime wife. The only difference is I didn't really know how to get it. And I still don't really, but okay. So.
Beautiful.
There's my 5.
Well done, Larry. Very good.
Now you've understood that I know nothing.
Yeah. You're very comprehensive. I noticed that you snuck in a number of subgroups. So instead of 5, there was really about 25. But, they were all good.
I'm a bad man.
No. So this is good, though, because I've done it a little bit differently. You're very good at these topics, both of you. So, but what I have done is just picked 5 things that I think are all not in any particular order, but they're all just a simple point in themselves. So, my assumption, and of course, I completely agree with you when we look back on our own lives, the way we made decisions, I'm sure Owen would agree, I'm sure Alethea and Carrie would agree too, the way we made decisions about the people we chose to be with was, flawed at least. And it's just the grace of God that we're here today. So we're obviously I'm looking kind of as a 60-year-old looking back saying, okay, well, if I had time over, if I did it again, then these are the things that I've observed. Not that I ignored them all, that wouldn't be true, but I think that some of them you realize how important they are as you get older. So, and I'm going in with the assumption, I'm not making it one of my 5 points, but going in with the assumption that biblically, if we're a Christian, you want to choose a Christian. I know, of course, that some people haven't, and that God doesn't leave them. He doesn't abandon them at all. It just ends up being tougher for you to flourish. So that would be just the healthiest. God's just interested in people doing well. So, that's an assumption that I have. And in the second half, when we come to the second half and some Q&A, then we can talk a little bit about not just, what to do if that hasn't happened, but how we process the situations that we're in, because some people, for many different reasons, are with an unbeliever, and sometimes one person got saved during the relationship, And of course, that changes things. So there's a lot of different ways. But if we're going from scratch, then certainly for me, that is the kind of a baseline. And then I've got these 5 points. Here we come, not in any particular order, but I think one of the biggest things you want to look for is just the heart of the person. So you want, for me anyway, soft, kind, true-hearted. I think that connects to loyalty a bit that Larry mentioned. But and of course this is personalized somewhat. These I'm not trying to teach generically because everybody's different. But if I was looking for something, I think if you have someone that has a softness of heart, then you are going to go through rough patches, even though when you're first together, you don't think you are. You just think you're going to conquer the world. And it's having that the right heart, a good heart attitude. The world knows what that is as well. Was somebody, Bruce Springsteen, somebody saying, a good heart is hard to find. Remember that? There was some song, a good heart is hard to find. And so
Feargal Sharkey.
Hey?
Feargal Sharkey.
Thanks, Owen. Thanks. It was Fergal. There you go. So that's one. Secondly, I think if I'm looking at that, I think you should have a reasonable number of similar interests. Okay. I think that's really prudent. I think that a lot of times when you're attracted to someone, and Larry, you made a good point about just the spark of attraction. I do think that as you get older, because I was then married very young and then remarried in my 40s, I do think that you're a little bit more pragmatic as you get older.
Yeah.
But I think that the spark, there's got to be a spark. There's got to be. So I agree with that. But beyond that, I think you've got to have a reasonable number of similar interests, because doing things together is just important, whether that's walking, whether that's having a dog, whether that's raising kids, whether that's going out for meals, watching movies, playing tennis, any number of things, going on holidays to certain places, whatever it might be. You want to have similar interests. So you'd be looking for that sort of thing. The third thing, and you touched on this, but I think obviously there's got to be physical attraction, and so if I'm looking for somebody, you want somebody that is not just physically attractive, but that there is a desire in them to stay in that shape. So Larry, I think you touched on the kind of hygiene thing, which is a really interesting thing. But it's one thing for somebody to present really well when they're young or when they're trying to impress you, but you actually want to find it. You want to find somebody that, for the way they present, is important to them.
Yeah.
And so I think that's important. I think you've got to. Everybody's a little bit different, but I think you've got to have a desire to keep looking your best, because we're going to get older. Bumps are going to come out where you don't want them to. Bits are going to sag. All those things are going to happen. And so you want to make the most. You want to be with someone that is doing their best to look good for you. The fourth one I've got is just a person that has a basic desire, a basic liking of themselves. I think that's really good. This is George. Is he coming in? He's from Pakistan. He's our man in Lahore. So that'll be good. So anyway, I'll let him connect. It's good if he'll try. So yes, somebody that basically likes themselves. I think in our culture, we suffer a lot from, hello, George. It's Paul here. And Larry's looking after us. It's good to see you there. How are you?
Good, sir.
He's joining the seminar. It is over there, what, about 8:30 at night, I think. But he's a late nighter. That's right. Good to see you, bro. Okay, we're just talking. I'm just finishing off my points on my top 5 for a spouse, and then in the second half we'll talk about how to live in the real world we live in. Yes, number 4, somebody who likes themselves. We all in our culture, and the West suffers a lot from this, tend to be down on ourselves. We tend to be, America is an interesting kind of animal, because at a superficial level, they're very positive about themselves and all that. But that doesn't always mean that's the way it is underneath.
No.
But you've got to like yourself makes you attractive. If you don't like yourself, you will automatically repel other people. And so that you've got to believe in you as a person. And I'm looking for that. I think what I would call it like a gentle confidence. And that comes into things like a person that's able to laugh, a person that is able to look positively towards life. So Larry, you touched really well on vision and that sort of thing. And that's akin to that. I'm not really talking about that. I just think, though, the perspective of life has to be positive, and they've got to like themselves. And then the final thing, I think, we talked about someone being a believer. I think I've kind of got two sides to this. I think the ability to share your heart and to have a devotion to Jesus that is similar to my one. So everybody's different like this. And, I think it's a mistake when people say, well, they've got to be a Christian and kind of that's all there is to it. It's a little bit, it's not really very helpful. It's a bit like saying, look, the only reason you can get divorced is if you have if there is marital unfaithfulness, which isn't really what the Bible teaches, to be honest. If there is marital unfaithfulness, of course that is legitimate. Of course that is to not continue the relationship, but there are a lot of reasons why trying to repair that is a better option. And there are also situations that I'm sure certainly Larry and Judy will be aware of that we've been through, where there may not be marital unfaithfulness per se, but there's a whole lot of other reasons that make continuing to live with this person a very unwise choice. So, it's not that simple as like that. We like it, just to read it, get a simple version. But I think that's really true too. You're looking for someone where their love for Jesus is similar to mine, and the ability to share your heart, the ability to talk about things that matter. Some people find that harder. Some people find it hard to unload a little bit and to say, look, I find that fascinating, or I don't like it when we talk about those things. And for somebody to be able to share their heart, so we have this deeper level of connection. So that's my 5. There you go.
Okay, wonderful.
Back to you, Larry. So George, I'm assuming you're with us. I'm not sure, but are you there?
He's on our screen. His microphone is muted though, so
yeah. No, I can see what you can see, but hopefully he's there. His connections is a bit up and down sometimes.
Okay.
All right. So what are we at? 30:30. Lovely. So we've gone through that.
Okay.
Take us away, Larry. Where are we going?
Okay. Now, I'm going to be very, very simple with the next part of what we're going to talk about, because I personally believe that the attributes that both Paul and I brought to the surface, if you are already married as Owen, I am, and and Paul is, and Carrie is.
George is, yeah.
Yes, okay. We're that to develop these things that we talked about is what we should be aiming at. For example, if we're faith-filled, well, okay. Now Judy gave me a little note here that she says, I never liked myself. I had very low esteem. Okay, when we first married, I was too. I was in this boat. Mm-hmm. And she says, you brought those things out. So basically, with her lack of self-esteem and her poor image of herself, I helped her to build that image up to hopefully a realistic level. I didn't try to artificially pump her up and say she was something she wasn't. That would
Mhm.
have been silly. But I tried to get her to see her true worth and exactly basically how Jesus sees her.
Mhm.
Being realistic about our faults, but also being realistic about our worth.
Mhm.
I think that one of the things that all of this tied into one basket would say to me would be value. What happens as we go through time and we live with each other for time? I'm fighting to keep my life in order. She's fighting to keep her life in order. We really could be going like on a dual carriageway with both of us in different lanes. What we've got
Yeah.
to do is merge into the same lane, you see, and go together with it. So I have to continually realize and intentionally affirm what her value is to me. Now, I've always said that this is a relationship that has to work. And to have any kind of a compromise on it is not acceptable. What I mean by that is I am fiercely protective of what comes in, okay, and I'm hopefully quite aware of what is going out.
Interestingly enough, though, it actually works both ways, because there are times when we might meet a person and Larry will look at that person and say, bad person, stay away. And I don't see it initially. And then as time bears out, he's right. But it has also worked the other way, where I've seen somebody and I smelled a rat and he never saw it at all. So I think learning to trust each other in a relationship is also very useful. Well, it's important. For me, it is.
Yeah, and I won't. I would. There is a danger in what she just said, which could be jealousy. Jealousy could be dictating those type of things, but then again, I have to. When she says something like that to me, I know she's not jealous. She's trying to protect me, but that took time. It took a lot of time for us to really understand where each other's coming from. Neither one of us, God be praised, are intensely jealous people. I am, however, shall we say, rigorously protective. So basically, a continuation of all of these points that we brought up is what we need to aim for in our marriages and in our long-term relationships. Loyalty. You know what I really don't like is when I hear a man who's speaking badly of his wife, or a wife that's speaking badly of her husband in public. I will not permit that. If Judy happens to speak badly of me, that's an argument. That's when we later on I say, look, I don't like it. And we don't do it. Okay. But we have had problems where we weren't aware that we were denigrating the other, but we did. So that was one of the hurdles we had to get over to make sure that we always speak well of each other to others. But it's also born in truth that we feel that way about each other. So I don't have to like pump it up. I don't have to big it up. I just tell the truth. I am so grateful that God has given me Judy. Judy's given given me to her. So it's unfeigned, if you like. When it comes to the vision part of it, this is an ongoing and ever-changing thing in a marriage, which makes things complicated because where we are now is not where we were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And this is where, Paul, I liked what you said a minute ago. What you implied very strongly was communication. Like if you have somebody who will not communicate with the other, if they're so closed in that you never really know what their likes and dislikes are, or they won't share their heart with you. That I've seen very often.
And that is very frustrating.
Now, I will be honest with you in saying that comes from men a lot more than women. Okay. In my experience. Okay. In my experience, I don't want to make a doctrine out of this, but many times us men, and I do this too, when I'm upset or when I'm worried about something, I won't talk. And it's very difficult for her. So she pulls me out. Okay. But luckily,
Especially if it's a health issue.
yeah.
He's really bad with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Larry.
As an athlete, I always learn to play when you're injured and don't talk about it. Because if you talk about it, then your opponent, your adversary, knows where your weakness is.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to give them that
Mhm.
advantage. It's just it's ingrained in there from doing tournaments and stuff.
Mhm.
You don't give your hand away. But unfortunately, she's right. I'll clam up quick when it comes to health. I will.
Mhm.
But when it must be immensely frustrating when someone won't share their heart with you.
Yeah, sure.
To me, that's real important. I also, Paul, I really take your point when you see we tend to take this biblical view, which is true, that the reason for divorce, well, infidelity, like what we talked about with loyalty. Okay, that's crucial.
Mhm.
That's a game breaker.
Mhm.
You don't have that, you don't have anything. But what about the husband who has no idea of finances and who's, let's say, a gambler, and he gambles away all the money that
Yeah.
and he's been doing it for 5-10 years. Well, sooner or later, the wife is going to break and say, get out.
Yeah.
Or if you get other circumstances, like if you have a one of the two who is never picking up after themselves.
Mhm.
That's why
That's where you were talking about hygiene and whatnot, and taking care of your appearance. If a person is not willing to take care of their appearance, if, for example, a person gets married and they've got this beautiful, wonderful body, and the minute they're married, they start eating and end up obese in 5.
Mhm.
That's not a good place to be.
Mhm.
And people, but that is also a picture of a person who is playing a game. And again, this is one of the reasons why I would say don't be in a rush. Although admittedly we were in a rush, don't be in a rush, because cracks are going to show the more time you invest. And this
Yeah.
our son did it really, really well, because he waited 3-4 years before they developed their relationship to that degree. And it gave them an opportunity to get to know each other without the complication of the hormones getting involved.
He's so much better.
People like that are like 1 in 1,000, I reckon.
I will never.
Quite remarkable. It's absolutely right in principle. It's absolutely right. But boy, waiting 3 or 4 years, I just couldn't do that.
I can't do that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Didn't either.
No.
So,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it's an easy thing to do, but it's
Yeah.
a wise thing to think about.
Oh no, it is. Yeah.
I think the thing I would say to people is you've got to get past the infatuation thing. I think that's important. When you fall for someone, then your heart beats. You want to speak to them all the time on the phone. You want their photo when you're next to your bed. You want to see them every day, or blah blah blah, blah, all that. So you're infatuated, and you think that's what love is.
Yeah.
And that kind of it opens the door in some ways, but actually I think that it's a bad idea to make long-term decisions while you're still infatuated. You've got to get past it. So you've got to get to the place where you think, actually, I don't want to live without them, but I'm not in an emotional state where I'm clingy and completely dependent, and I can't see how I could. I think you've got to get past that kind of phase, and you've got to be able to see that they have faults. That's really important.
Yeah.
Now
when you're infatuated, you can't see. All you can see is that they're just so wonderful. They're just the most wonderful person that's ever lived. Oh my goodness. Which darn well that nobody is that good.
No.
But you've got to get it till your heart clicks in, I think, till your heart says, okay, so there's something we didn't like very, very much. How are you feeling now?
And
that sort of thing.
There, I think, really your connection to God, which is something that none of us have really spoken about here, is so important. Larry mentioned the connection with God in the beginning, but if God, if you take your query to God, is this guy the right guy for me, or is this woman the right woman for me? And you take it to God, who sees everything and who knows that person better than they know themselves. I think you are on a more sensible footing than if you try to make the decision without God.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think that, I think in the Christian world that I have, had something to do with, most people that will ask God will be so colored by their emotions that they'll find it hard to get clarity on that. And if you have and I teach this on knowing what the will of God is, if you have a very strong passion for something, you'll end up hearing God affirm that, whether he's saying it or not, because it just means so much to you. So you have to get past that kind of. But I totally agree, Judy. You want God involved from the beginning, and you want to learn to follow your heart, because the sirens will go off on the inside of you if this is a wrong person, as long as your heart is in a good place.
Yeah.
And you want to learn to follow that.
So would you say, Paul, can I ask you a question, please?
Yeah.
Would you say that it is best to have the relationship go in a way to where the fire calms down a little bit before you make the commitment? Would you say that would be a benefit?
I'd say I can't say that I have ever done that, but I'd say that's very sensible. Yeah. Yeah, I do. I think there's got to be, and I think your son is David. You talked about, like, he's past that and then some. It doesn't take 3 or 4 years to get past that. That will have to do as well with his makeup or his personality.
Yeah.
But I'm a very, very impatience is the wrong word for it. Decisive. I'm a decisive person.
Or perhaps impulsive.
Well, I have a very unique experience though with marriage, because when I met God for the first time, I'd been going out with Judy for 2 weeks, and obviously I was very attracted to her and her to me, but I was actually going to break up with her the night when God came to me, because I just thought we're just too different. I can't see this working. Even though we communicated easily, there was a good flow, which is very important to me. But I just thought she's just too different than me. And then God, when I first met him, after I gave my life to him, he said, "Judy is the woman I want you to marry." Now, the funny thing is, I had no intention of marrying anyone. And
right. Yeah.
So that, and also I'm going to say something that might give you guys a bit of a start, but we were not in love when we married.
No.
We had attraction, okay, but we knew that wasn't love. We knew that was attraction. But the thing is love, true love, grew, and God said that it was going to grow. He said, "I'm going to teach you how to love this woman." You see, and as the years went by, then the love grew, as the commitment grew, as we interacted and got used to each other. But it's a very strange thing. I wasn't in love with her. She wasn't in love with me.
But I also need to say that there is a huge difference between an 18-year-old falling in love and a person who is 28 falling in love. And we were that much older, and therefore I think we were more inclined to hold back 10 whole months. But more so, I think we had a more clear idea of where we wanted to go in a relationship from that start.
Yes. That's important. That's a significant change of age, for sure. I mean, I think I would say this, that you've just got saved. Your heart is given to God fully, and so your heart's in a really good place in that regard. And so we can look back on that and say that would be the case. But I wouldn't ever advocate somebody feeling feeling like they've met Jesus and he told them they're going to marry somebody, because 9 out of 10 of the guys that have said that are a bit loopy and end up.
Yeah.
I remember a guy,
No, and I always
guy
say,
back in.
I always say, Paul, I always say I wouldn't have married me. I wouldn't have married me if I would have looked with
Yeah.
cold hard reason to me and how I was at that stage. I wouldn't have married me. No way. This guy's crazy. I mean, I was.
So tell all of us then, when you say, that's an interesting thing, when you say we got married, we weren't in love, we were attracted. So when you say that, what do you mean by love? How do you define love? I agree that it grows, of course, and I think I understand what you're saying, but I'd like you to talk about that. We weren't in love, we grew in love. So what is it to be in love then?
Okay, little by little, we learned the sacrificial part of the relationship that leads to love. Okay, love is expressed by me giving space to her, even when I don't like it.
Sure.
And also, basically, I put aside things that I want to do things that are beneficial for the relationship. For example, I stopped playing tournament tennis. I was rising in the rankings and moving ahead, but I stopped that because I saw that our relationship was going to suffer. So
right.
I stopped doing that.
Also, certain friendships
yes.
had to take a back seat, and in fact, some friendships had to disappear altogether.
Yes.
Because they were detrimental to our relationship to each other and to God.
Yep. No, that's right. And that's good advice. That's absolutely true. That's one of the tougher things for people to face.
It is.
To cut some things off.
One of the things that you have to make a choice about, because there are certain people in our lives as single people that works very well while we're single people, but just is never, ever going to gel as when you move into a place where you become a couple.
Yeah.
It's never going to work. And that can be very, very painful. I think you had it worse than me in that sense.
But to me, the love that grew was because I started little by little understanding the sacrificial love of Jesus Christ. Now, Paul, I get your point to where I'm just freshly born again, and God tells me to marry this woman. And that's why I say I wouldn't have married me.
Yeah.
Because this guy's a kook. But that's what happened. And I just told him that's what he told me. Now, actually, I didn't tell her right away that God told me to marry her. As a matter of fact, I didn't ever tell her. And I also never proposed to her. I never got down on the bended knee and said, will you marry me? I know this is weird. It's very strange because I'm the only one who I know who didn't do that. I didn't do it because this is going to sound really asinine, but I didn't.
I didn't.
I do not. Come on, Owen. I just didn't think of it. Why didn't you?
I did.
Owen, why didn't you?
We spoke about it. We spoke about it a lot, and in the end, she just asked me. I said yes.
Yeah,
that's a beauty. Love it.
What will you see?
I mean, by that time we've been together for I think over 3 years.
Okay.
So,
we just kind of morphed into it.
Yeah.
Were you inclined to get married, Owen?
Yes. Yes, I had a mentor guy at the time, and we were in business, and he said, right, okay, so this is the girl that you've been with for 2 years, 2.5 years, going to 3 years. He says, so what are you going to do? I just started to go to church, and it was, in fact, it was my dad dying and seeing him die, and it's like, what am I actually waiting for? She'd already asked. I said yes, but we didn't do anything about it. So when he died, I just said he died in June, and we were married in November.
Okay, there you go. Wow.
See, also, and I think that but I think you and I are, well, all of us here are the same, as that we want a long-term relationship. I don't want fly-by-night
Yeah.
stuff. Just
No,
don't
no.
want it.
I've had them. I've had a number.
Well, I have too, but I
But
didn't like it.
I never really wanted. No, I didn't really want to be honest.
Mhm.
Yeah, because there's always the ripping away, the tearing away, and the rah.
Mhm.
Oh, no, I
Just
wanted,
stable.
yeah, this is my woman. She's mine. I'm hers.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I had a lot of short relationships, but that's just because that was the age I grew up in.
Mm.
So yeah.
Girls were all over the place and they were just looking for guys. And I don't know,
Mhm.
that was the way the world went. But then when I
Mm.
met Father God, that changed everything, didn't it? But
Mhm.
I always was a long-term person and very loyal. When
Mhm.
someone does something good for me, I never forget it.
Mhm.
Simply because I've had lots of people do things that aren't good to me,
Mhm.
like calling you. So it just stands out, huh?
Good stuff. I think so when you're saying, when you're talking about love, right, then so love, you're talking about it from a place of maturity and biblical kind of understanding, so that love necessarily involves sacrifice and living for the good of the other person, which would mean, that's what you're saying essentially, isn't it?
I think also an important element is actually, do you like the other person? Could you be
Yeah,
friends?
it's on two
with
levels.
it?
Good.
You know, you need to be able to be friends, and you need to be able to communicate as friends.
Yeah, two levels.
Sure.
And then it can grow from that platform. But if you
Yeah,
cannot even be friends to start with, that makes it very difficult.
Yeah, yep.
You know,
Yep.
I have a saying that's going to sound very, very harsh.
Mm.
This is something that I've told many men and women over the years, and I know I get some pushback for it, but if the one you're going to marry does not know Jesus, he doesn't know how to love you, because he doesn't know what love is, because he doesn't understand the sacrifice, or she doesn't understand the sacrifice. And that doesn't mean that they're not nice people, or that they can't really strong with you and everything, good for you, but they don't understand love if they don't know Jesus.
Yeah.
I know that's a bit categorical, and I try to get it across nicely, but it's hard to that idea.
I totally agree with you theologically and from that perspective. I think in the real world, having dealt with that, I know there are some very nice, very decent, very upright, very loyal people that are not committed to Jesus, and that's a good thing to be. And then there are also Christian people who may have met Jesus, but have never really chosen to go on very far.
No.
And so they might theorize that they know what it is to love, but they actually haven't learnt to love because they haven't followed in that far. I think that's common. So then I think
I think another thing I hate to say this, but from experience with other people, I know it's true. There are sometimes men who will go and look for the easy fish to catch in the church. So he'll put on the Christian face.
Oh, sure.
But it's not real. And let me tell you, that usually often ends very badly.
Yeah, it does.
Sure.
Yep.
It would.
Yeah, we've seen that.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that's true. So I think, but all we can do is look after ourselves, can't we, in our context? So that what we're talking about here in terms of what relationships we're going to have, or how we are going to work with a relationship that obviously none of them will get all 5 or all 10. So how do we work on ourselves? I think that's a really big thing. I just think working on yourself rather than working on the other person is really important. So if, because once you're in a situation, if, depends how many people might view this in the future as well. I'm thinking if we've got a situation where we've just talked about these kind of 10 features and a person's in a relationship, they're married, and they think, well, I think that there's 3 or 4 of those that we're missing it pretty badly on, which makes sense as to why our relationship is struggling. So what are you going to do about that? And I think in that context, then, there's a couple of things that are important. I think you've got to keep your heart in a positive state. If you're in a state where you're frustrated with the other person or there's difficulties, you have to keep your heart healthy. You can't let your heart get hard, because as soon as that happens, you're in trouble. So you need, and it's like doing exercise. It's like going to the doctor for those, Larry, those kind of, you have to do what you have to do. If you see that there's problems, you need to deal with them. So in terms of just, I have to keep my heart in a healthy place. And I think one of the things that's helped me the most in all that is just try and keep things as light as you can. It's easy to get intense. Depends on your personality, but I can be fairly intense. Carrie can be fairly intense as well. So one of the best ways to help is to just decide we're going to keep it light here. This is not the end of the world, most of these things. So let's just keep a laugh about it. And I think if you can keep a lightness in it, it helps a lot. And then I think that this is great advice from somebody else, but maybe the first step where there's challenges, maybe the first step is to discipline yourself to listen to the other person with a view to understand where they're coming from. I think that's maybe the biggest trap that people fall into when they're not connecting well. Yeah. And they're saying, oh, gee, out of your 10, we'd be lucky to have 5. She doesn't really like herself. He's interested in different things to me, and he hasn't got a kind heart. So then what are you going to do from there? So you've got to build. If you're in it, you've got to do the best you can to build, and listening to the other person to understand their point of view. When people don't feel heard, you're in trouble. And whether their perception of it is right or not right, you have to do everything you can to show them that they're being heard. I can hear what you're saying. And you can never invalidate what somebody else is saying or feeling. So, because I think that's dangerous ground. It doesn't matter where they came from. It doesn't matter whether they're like their mother or they're like their father or they've been like this for 50 years or whatever it is. You can't, if they're feeling it, they're feeling it. And you have to acknowledge that. And then work with it. And if we're having trouble having a conversation about it, then you need to talk to Larry and Judy, or find somebody that you feel like there are others who can help. So, but I think those things, we're all going to have moments when it isn't working the way we hoped it would work, or we see things in our partner or indeed in ourselves that we don't like. So you can work on yourself. You owe it to God and yourself and your partner to do that. But you also have to use a little bit of wisdom with how you relate to the other person, I think. So they're just a few. Look at the time, folks.
Yeah,
Can't believe
we got it. How about that?
And well, are you still there, George John?
He's not answering.
You can unmute and say hello, because I think we're ending in a
Yeah.
You are there. Yay.
Yeah, I'm still.
Hey, great, man. Hope that you enjoyed it. Good to see you. I will talk to you in a little while, yeah? I'm due to call you in half an hour or so. So I'll talk to you soon. But this has been a special seminar that Larry... So I'll let Larry... He looks after these. So Larry and Judy can sign off for us today. They've just... and close up and say whatever final comments you wish to make, Larry.
Okay, well, God bless all of you. I think it's been a wonderful time of sharing, and God bless all of you. We'll see you soon. Okay.
Absolutely. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
I'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye.